My name is Jeff St Laurent. This is the Tuesday live show, and I'm excited for today because today I'm going to be talking about the hottest marketing tips that I know. And I'm going to stay a little bit further away from the uh, specifics of like, oh, do this specifically, etc. And I'm going to give you things around expectations and methodologies that I found have worked for myself and the stuff that I teach to my mentor coaching clients and my one-on-one in my groups, because marketing can be a really big topic. Can we say that, to say the least? And I want to kind of make it a little bit more manageable for you and be real in terms of what works and what doesn't work. So with that being said, before we get jumping into that, I do record all of my Tuesday live shows and I put them in my university at sellingcoaching.com. So check out my university. I help coaches transition to a full-time business, and I have a lot of great resources there. If you start right off on the homepage, and enter your name and email address, that's going to get you instant access to my audio training program, which is Launching Your Full-Time Coaching Business, the First 3 Vital Steps. That's also going to put you in my email community, which allows me to stay in front of you on a weekly basis, share some great information, some great stories, and let you know when I'm offering any different types of programs, etc. So I'd love to be a part of my community. And if you're watching this live, I'm actually going to put this in the comments right now. If you're watching the recording of this, then we'll have this down below in the text anyways. I am running another 5-month group mentor coaching program. So for those of you that are watching live, I'm actually hosting this on, we're starting this off next week. So I just threw that into the comments so you can have that. But I'm starting that next week. If any of you are interested in that, just click that link that I put into the comments, and then you can enter your name and email. That's going to bring you to a page or have more information. And of course, if you're, it sounds really good, then just fill that form out. I'll follow up with you and we can get in touch and talk about that program. With that being said, it is time to talk about the hottest marketing tips. And I almost hate to say, I almost hated to use that word, like the hottest marketing tips, because it sounds so markety, right? It sounds so like, oh, this is hot, and this, it's we're gonna get you a 6-pack, ready for summer, like marketing type thing. And I don't usually like to do that stuff, but to me, these are the hottest marketing tips that I know, because at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're marketing. And so the first thing I'll say in terms of marketing, a lot of coaches lock up when they think of marketing, lock up when they hear the word sales or selling, etc. Lock up in the sense that they're not comfortable with it. They have some, bad associations with it, or they don't want to be perceived as selling something, or, that marketer. At the end of the day, we are marketers. We have a business. It's a commission-only business. You're a full-time marketer. You're a full-time salesperson. Probably the last thing you wanted to hear, because you think of yourself as a coach, but you're a full-time marketer, full-time salesperson, because is anyone paying me to be in my office right now? No. Is anyone paying me to do this show? No. My ability to turn this into income is my ability to market and then to sell what I have to offer, right? So I want you to understand that. That's why, my business, selling, coaching, etc., everything I teach goes back to that selling skill set, because I want you to become comfortable with it. And so the first thing, and one of the first hottest marketing tips I can give you is that I want you to think of marketing differently, and I want you to think of replace the word marketing with communicating. That's all we are, is communicating a message. All I am here for you today is I'm communicating a message. I'm helping you. I'm educating you. Yeah, do I make you aware of how you can go to sellingcoaching.com and get some of my resources or see the stuff that I have there? Can I tell you about a program that I have to offer? Absolutely, right? So I have the stuff there, but I'm not shoving it down your throat. I'm just saying, hey, listen, here's what I got. I got a 5-month group program, or I've got this 14-day challenge, or I'm available for one-on-one mentoring, right? And I share that stuff, but the bulk of what I'm sharing with you is education based. It's helping you in some ways. It's allowing us to connect and nurture this relationship. And that's what we're doing on a regular basis. So I want you to start off and think of that's all I'm doing. This, to me, this show, right? This is me marketing. but hopefully you don't see it as me marketing. I'm just communicating my message. So I want you to reposition or reframe that in your mind so that when we start to market, like we're communicating, when we send our emails out on a regular basis, when I help my clients, set that structure up right in the very beginning, like on our first session, it's like, all right, people call it email marketing, but it's communicating. That's all we're doing is just communicating a message to stay top of mind, to nurture and build those relationships, help those people along. So ideally when the timing's right, you know what? Maybe they'll do something with us. Maybe they'll hire us. So I want you to first get in the right mind frame or mind work or whatever. I don't know if there's a real word for that, but mindset, if you will, right? Where it's communicating, right? So the next tip I want to give you is that there's no right or wrong. So when it comes to marketing, I think where us coaches get very overwhelmed, I know I did in the very beginning, we're on a bunch of email lists, we're on social media and we have all these sponsored ads, and then we're involved with, a lot of different coaches. Oh my God, I'm trying this, or I met this person, or I'm doing this, I can't tell you how many coaches I talk to, as you would imagine I would, on a regular basis, daily basis, and I'm doing this digital marketing course, I'm doing this content writing course, I'm doing this speaking course, I'm doing this. There's all these different courses of marketing their business that they're selling, that they're signing up for, and then they're trying one thing for a little bit and trying another thing for a little bit, right? So with all that out there, I'm not saying I approve of everything that's out there or everything's fantastic, but with that being said, there's no right or wrong. So, at the end of the day, if you're doing something and you're sticking to it, that's better than doing nothing. We just have to evaluate the effectiveness of it and how right it is for us or not as we go along. So that's another tip is no right or wrong. So hopefully that gives you the freedom to pick something that sounds good and feels good for you as you start to move forward. The next tip I'll have to give you is I want you to pick a method. And so there's a bunch of different methods out there in terms of how we begin to market. But at the end of the day, you've got to pick a method. If you notice, I didn't say pick some different methods and try them all out. Like pick a method, do some due diligence. I'm not talking months worth of due diligence. Like you've got how you rate a method is you've got to trust your gut on what feels right. There's gimmicky stuff out there, and there's a lot of marketing hype around how people market and how they do business. And a lot of the times, if it sounds too good to be true, odds are it's too good to be true. I'm not being pessimistic or unopportunistic or whatever the word you'd call that. I'm just saying, just be real with yourself. If you're, earn your first 5 figures in your first 5 months, is it possible? Yeah. Is it most likely going to happen? No, I'd say it's not. Out of 100 people, how many people will be able to do that? A very, very small percentage, maybe 1 out of 100. I don't know. Maybe we run a batch through and 10 people do it, but it's a very small percentage. It's not impossible. The point is that don't get mixed into too much hype, but find something and pick something that works that you feel is good, but pick a method. And once you pick a method, the next tip I have to give you is tune everything else out. You've got to tune everything else out. It's called SOS. It's shiny object syndrome. We get this shiny object syndrome as coaches because, like I said at the very beginning, we're involved with, we're seeing all these ads on social media and we're on all these email subscriptions from all these marketers and all these coaches and all these gurus out there. Hopefully you're in my community, right? But the point is that, the reason I don't market hype, I don't market, necessarily methodology, I market fundamentals. I teach fundamentals of marketing. I have methodologies that I get into with my clients as I work with them, right? But the stuff I teach here is all fundamental stuff. It's, in a sport like basketball, it's dribbling, passing, and shooting. I'm not teaching you the plays and all that other stuff and the fancy stuff. Like, those are all different methods that you can, play the game of basketball. But I'm like, if you can't master the fundamentals of dribbling, passing, and shooting, then it doesn't matter if you if you can run a play, right? So I'm dribbling, passing and shooting and understanding the mechanics of the game, having good sense on the court. That's what I'm teaching you with entrepreneurship. It's the fundamentals of your business. I don't get into, methodology and the stuff that I'm teaching you all here. I get into, like I said, I get into some methodology when I'm working with clients, in that deeper mentoring space. But that's where I'm coming from today is if you notice, I'm like, not like, oh, we'll try this and we'll do Facebook ads and then we'll run into a presentation and then we'll have booking and like that's a method, but if you haven't mastered the fundamentals of all that space, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. It's funny because there's so many marketing methods that are out there that are like, oh, create a 45-minute presentation, or let's create a lead magnet and run a Facebook ad to it and things like that, or whatever that's out there. Just I'll give you a few specific things, and then I'll work with the average coach, and even the coach who's been doing it for a while, and I'll be like, oh, well, let's try you out on video. Let's make a video, or what do you have for a free resource on your website? And that's like the hardest thing for them to do. And now you're taking these marketers who are saying, let's design, a presentation or an opt-in, or let's build a funnel, and a coach doesn't even know who their target market is. You know what I mean? Like we gotta go in stages. We gotta understand who we're going after. We gotta understand some of the fundamentals. And so that's why I say is as you start to do this and as you pick a method, like I said, start to tune everything else out and focus on that and get good at that. Just like when I talk about social media, it's like there's so much out there. Like pick a platform and blow it up. Why do you have to be on all these different platforms? You're not missing out on anything because you're on Instagram versus Facebook versus LinkedIn. Identify your market, go where they most likely are, and the easiest is to get in front of them and pick that platform. So same thing here. Pick a method and then stick to that method. With whatever method you pick, another tip is be consistent with whatever you pick. Duh. Okay, but I gotta say that is you've got to be consistent and you've got to do it repetitively. There's so many people out there in general that us as coaches will do something a few times, a handful of times, a dozen times. It's not working. Oh, well, I did this. I'm reaching out like you asked, or like I did what the program said, and I haven't gotten any clients yet. Okay, well, do it again. Do it again. And let's start to refine like how you're doing it. You can't expect to put something out there, and I'll talk more of these tips later on to further this piece. You do it a few times, like got to do it consistently. And the other tip that I'll do that is you've got to give it time. And like any one method, a minimum of 3 to 6 months. And I would consider that a short amount of time. Get a methodology. Like I've had a methodology in my business that I've been working for the past 7 years since I've been doing mentor coaching. Prior to that, I did 10 years of my life coaching business. But when I've come into this, it's like I had a plan going into this, and but it's a long-term plan. And a lot of people, a lot of coaches, people aren't good long-term. They're just like, they just can't hang long-term. And everything I teach is long-term, fundamental. It's the boring stuff. It's the stuff that you don't want to hear because it's not sexy and it's not fast and it's not quick and it's not easy. I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's not easy. And so it's simple, but it's not easy. How's that? And with the whole point of that is it's a long-term mindset behind this. So, pick a method, do it consistently, but do it consistently over time. How many times, if you're a student of mine, have you heard me say consistency over time, right? So you've got to do it consistently. You've got to give it time to start working out. When I'm working in my groups or my one-on-one, my mentor coaching, and we start a marketing plan, and when we have a session, et cetera, there's some time or gap in between, maybe when we'll officially meet next. If it's one-on-one, we're communicating in between, but it's your marketing plan. You've got to start, giving it time for it to work so you could start seeing the results, start having some conversations, et cetera. You just can't do things for even a couple weeks or a month and expect to know whether it works or not. That's why I said give it time, at least 3 to 6 months for it to start to work for you. Another tip I'm going to have is you can't rely on passive marketing. Whatever you're doing for marketing has to have an active component to it. And let me explain what that means. Passive marketing to me would be, and I'm not saying you can't have a passive component, right? But let me clarify this. So passive marketing would be running an ad, with nothing else, just running the ad. It's passive, right? We set the ad up and it runs. And then hopefully people convert into, you know, our email list or whatever type of funnel that we're starting to build from them. And some, let's say, passive marketing, like an ad, which into an opt-in into, you know, a drip system of an email marketing, you know, which has upsells along the way, can be fairly passive, right? That's fine. But my methodology is there's got to be an active component, right? Another passive methodology is just social media, like people just posting stuff on social media. It's passive. You're putting something out there, and then you're hoping that, all right, well, I hope I get clients. All right, well, I haven't got any clients yet, or my list isn't building. I'm putting stuff out there every day, 5 times a day, whatever times a day, or a week, and nothing's happening. It's passive. What do you just expect? Like, people think like, oh, I'm going to put stuff out there. I'm going to run an ad and I'm just going to make tons of money. It's like, no, you're not. There's got to be there's got to be an active component to it. So what's the active component? The active component is actually, it's called something called work, right? It's something called creating conversations. It's called following up on interests and activity, right? So you run a Facebook ad, and even if there's a system in there, like especially in the beginning, like there's got to be an active component, especially as you start off. And a lot of marketers will say, well, no, we're just going to build this funnel and we're going to have upsells along the way and you're going to sit on your ass and it's just going to convert. And it's a numbers game, blah, blah, blah. And can that work? It can, right? But to get to that point, you've got to really understand your market. You got to understand what their needs are. You got to be in business for years, have worked with clients and understand their needs, understand their trigger points in a place where, what are their hot topics that they're buying from, that they're converting, their activity, etc. You know, in the beginning, you don't know that, or at least you think you know that, or you might think you know that. I thought I knew what coaches needed. You know, when I started mentor coaching, because how would I not? Right? I've been through what they've been through, right? Of course, I knew it logically, but when I started working with them, all the stuff that I wanted to start talking about, I couldn't start talking about it because they didn't even know who their target market was. You know, they couldn't write a free resource, or they were too afraid to write an email or do a video. So I had to I love those topics, but I had to kind of refocus on where my entry points were and what my topics were starting off. Until now, 5, 6, 7 years later, I've had coaches that evolved. I can get into some other topics that I'm even more excited about, that I know are going to get them to business, but I have to start them off fundamentally yet, right? So the active component is you following up with people. It's starting conversations. It's going in. It's reacting. It's following up on reactions. You know, in some of my one-on-one and my group stuff with my clients, like this is where I'm diving in very deeply with them and helping them with the actual conversations, right? But if you put out on a post out on social media, passive, great, and then someone likes it, or someone even says, wow, this is so great, or thank you, or, you know, love this, or so it's so timely for me, thank you. Right, so that it's not just like, all right, where are my clients? You know, why aren't they opting in? Right, so no. Now the active component is you following up on a comment saying, hey, I saw that you loved or liked my last video on blah blah blah. I'm curious, you know, what you're going through in your world right now that you liked. Or I'm curious what specifically that you liked about it. So it makes a comment like, you know, so true, you know, or love this. You know, what was it specifically that you loved, or what are you specifically going through where this was impactful for you or resonated with you? Opening up a conversation, and that's the active piece, right? And so this leads me into the next tip, which is the more conversations you have, the more business you'll get. You're not gonna get business if you don't have conversations. One of my advanced groups, it's my GoPro Masters group, or my master's program, and that's like where we zoom in on. It's a very revenue focused, revenue driven program. And we're zooming in on these conversations, and it's like you could do all that marketing in the world, passive marketing, but now we've got to start to have conversations with people. We've got to start to proactively reaching out to people and opening up conversations with them. And this goes into the next tip, coupled with the conversations. It's asking for business. It's asking for help. The more you ask for help, the more you ask for business, the more you're going to get, the more opportunities you're going to have, the more doors you're going to open. If you're not creating conversations, you're not asking, you're not going to get business. It's a fact. It doesn't mean that business won't come your way and randomly like, oh, someone shows up and they're just like, well, I'm ready to hire you. Oh my God. And they hire you. Great. Okay. I'm not going to say it's never going to happen. but it's going to be very rare and don't ever expect it. So when it does happen, it's very refreshing and it's exciting, but you've got to ask, you've got to have those conversations. You'd be surprised at how hard it is to find a phone number on websites. Like when coaches start interacting with me, sometimes like I'll call them up and it's so hard to find a phone number because people don't put phone numbers out there a lot of the times because people don't use the phone. You got to use the phone. This is a phone. It's not a mobile phone. This is my business landline that I have. And maybe it's old school, but either way, we all have phones. And people think of a phone now. It's more of a camera and a texting device and a social media and a web browser type of thing. But it's actually a phone. You can actually talk to people. And I'm being very sarcastic right now, but it's like people are hiding passively behind social media and virtual communication. And well, I emailed them and they haven't gotten back to me, so I guess they're not interested. Well, I sent a message and they haven't gotten back to me. And it's like, that's passive. You have to follow up. People are busy. You're not the most important thing to them. You're the last on the list, or if you're even on their radar at all. And this is where we've got to get over and start to understand it's not us being pushy or aggressive, or it's like it's us passionate about a message and following up on people's actions, or asking for help, or asking for ideas, or approaching someone and saying, hey, based on what I saw, what I read, or what I heard, it sounds like my message might be complimentary to you or to your group, and I was wondering if you'd be open for a conversation to talk a little bit more. I feel like I can help. And finding different ways of doing that. And this is my last tip, which I'll wrap this up, is you can't be afraid to dig. You can't be afraid. And I call digging is the work. This is the real work of diving in. It's behind the scenes. It's me yesterday. Like I said, I'm running a 5-month program, my GoPro Elite Group Coaching Program. And I put a link to this in here. And yesterday, like, I was emailing, I was calling, I've sent emails out from my email platform. I'm seeing who's clicking on the emails. I'm following up with those emails. I'm searching for phone numbers. I'm calling people. I'm on Facebook Messenger, working with those people, booking appointments. I'm getting them into my schedule so we can have a phone conversation. I'm gauging needs. I'm gauging interests. I'm promoting and talking about my program and saying, like, hey, based on what I'm seeing here, I can't help but ask if you'd ever take a closer look at this program I have. I feel like it might be good for you based on what you told me. Hey, if it's not for you, no worries about it. But if it is, let's have a conversation. Great. Yeah, Jeff, this sounds good. Great. Here's a link to my schedule. Let's get in there. Or here, can we talk tomorrow? Right? And so now, as a result, I've got 6 conversations booked so far for the rest of this week because I'm trying to fill my group program. And yes, I sent the emails out. I did the social media posts. I did all the passive stuff. But if there's no active component and I send that out and I go, all right, sign up, baby. And I've got the automated system. I've got everything set up, but I've got to play an active role on that. And that's the work that we've got to do. I'm not going to fill my program. I'm not going to be able to help those people. I'm not going to get paid if I don't do those active components. And that's the following up. It's creating conversations, and it starts in a virtual space, but it's getting them to I guess the phone is still virtual, but it's more of it's a conversation. It's engaging in a conversation and starting to take someone through a process. And that's marketing. But if you revert back to the very beginning of this, what is marketing? It's communication. If you're not communicating and if you're not opening up those conversations, you're not marketing, and therefore you're not getting business. And if you take all the tips that I share with you and you apply that to any methodology that you have, you're going to be successful with this as long as you're doing it long term. And I will tell you this, like I said at the very beginning, one of my first tips was that there's no right or wrong. The reality is that when it comes to what you're doing out there, and obviously I can help you with the specifics, I can help you with the methodology, with the things that I offer, like I say, but here I stick to those fundamentals and understanding the nature of the game, so you can go into it with the right attitude, with the right mindset, and more importantly, I think the right expectations, so that you can stick in the game long term, because that's what we're doing. We're creating a long-term sustainable